Hello, dear brothers. Welcome on board. I will be your instructor for Russian History 122. So I hope it's going to be a good journey. Unfortunately, there is not much interaction today, so you will be kind of staring at me and listen to what I will be explaining about this course. But it will be much more lively, I'm sure, when we'll meet face to face. Okay, first of all, let's go through our syllabus. That's your responsibility. It's our working document. To know your syllabus, it is posted in Populi and should be available to you, and you should make sure that the syllabus is that you are familiar with this. So that's really important. Okay, let's talk about this. Right, our textbook is Paul Bushkovich, Concise History of Russia, which is available from your friendly bookstore for purchase. So please make sure that you get a copy, since it's going to be our textbook, and this textbook is referred in the syllabus. Okay, so there is a number of primary sources, which is supplemental, and also supplemental readings. They're like whole page of supplemental reading, right? So please make sure that if you are interested, that you read it. Okay. I mean that ask questions, because we are studying the entire history of Russia, over 1,000 years in one course. So therefore there are a lot of references pertaining to the study of history. Right? So therefore I need to mention what is the objective of this course. And the objective of this course the objective of this course is that upon completion of this course, you will have a clear idea about major events of the Russian history, very major events, because this course does not really prerequisite any previous knowledge in Russian history. So I don't expect you any background, but I hope that upon successful completion you will be able to explain, like let's say in an elevator conversation, which is like a 1 minute conversation, you should be able to say what are major hits of Russian history, like let's say what are 10 major events of the Russian history, the most profoundly fundamental events. And that's probably how we are going to assess you at our final examination. Would ask you to outline those 10 major events. Okay, so having said that, I am going to our syllabus, right? And here is on page 4 method, how this course is going to work. So every week I will post a question for you, which is based on your home reading, and you are expected to write a 150-word essay on the topic that is connected with this reading. Okay. And there is also explanation how I expect you to proceed with this, that you must adhere rigorously to the questions posed, okay, that your answer should avoid generalization and illustrate your point, okay, so drawing on facts. And then try to be specific, just don't try to keep away from watering, from just using very general terms. Okay. There is also your grade is going to be composed from 3 components. Discussions here are meant online discussions. So your essay and possibly also your comments on your peer essay. So we'll see. I don't know how big this class is going to be, how it's going to work. So we'll see about this, how discussions might work or might not work. But so that's something that's also part of your essay. So it's essay plus discussion are accountable for 50% of this course. And exams will be 40%. and class participation will be 10%. So what does it mean, class participation? Basically, that you bring your body in class, so take yourself in class, and be ready to answer my questions. And one thing that I would like to tell you, right? Don't say I don't know, just say something. That's my general policy with all my students, that I expect my students just to throw in some answers. Even if you think it's nonsense, it would still would work better for you, since you engage in discussion. Then you just say no, disengagingly, I don't know. So I don't want to hear I don't know, generally, if possible. Okay. So that would be another 10%, and therefore discussions / essays are accountable for 50, exams for 40, and class for 10. Okay. Right. What is also important, that whenever you assess or discuss something, you should try to remain respectful. Even if you profoundly disagree with your opponent, you still should couch your response in respectful tone. That's something that I will observe, that no disrespectful remarks regarding any group of people would appear throughout this course. Okay, now, so since we study Russian history, and this is your first course on history or that you take in the seminary, I understand that you studied history on your own, you studied history in your schools or homes through your homeschooling, so you definitely were exposed a great deal to history. So that's I understand. But also, we as Orthodox often take for history various accounts. So let's say we every day, when we go for meal, when we go to the refectory, we listen to various accounts about saints' lives. And we often take it for history. And in fact, those accounts, which are called hagiographical accounts, they are histories. But they have a very specific purpose. The purpose of those accounts to provide Christians with defining examples, with examples how people who are the same as us, who are also weak, who also sinful, nevertheless were able to overcome their weakness, and they were able to be in next with Christ in the life to come, and then they were revealed through the church as saints. So therefore, that would be major message of those accounts. It would be like an icon and a photo. So if you would take a photo of a particular saint during his lifetime, like recent saints, you see that photo might also depict various things that may be related to sickness or something undignifying. But an icon will be very dignifying, because the saint is already revealed in his present time, in the future life, where he is right now. So therefore, all those results of human fall will be kind of beautified and improved. And the same is the same might explain difference between history and also hagiographical accounts, life of the saints. So we will be doing here history. And to do history, that means that one has to dissociate herself from his own background. But don't be afraid of this. I will explain exactly what I mean, and not just me, but I will refer to Father George Florovsky. So I think it will be clearer after we read today some excerpts from his his beautiful work about a Christian historian. So therefore, history history is revolved around studies of history are revolved around a critical approach. So therefore, without critical approach, there are no histories. So and it's perfectly fine if somebody doesn't want to do it, and there are many cases when we don't want to do it. Like, I don't really want to, let's say, write a history of my mother because that's something it will be difficult for me to do. Okay, so I won't be able to do objective. I won't be able to dissociate myself from this, and we should understand that there are our limitations. So. And there are biasness, and it's okay to be biased. So no one can escape biasness. So that's taken for granted. Therefore, we need to study not just some version of history, because there are also various versions. Like, okay, you can talk about various conflicts to people from one on another side of this conflict, and you will see one sanitized story of the conflict, basically justifying one group of individuals, and then you will see another sanitized version of the story provided by the other group of individuals. So in order to reconstruct the past, you would have to basically make both versions talk to each other, and that's what is a task of historian. But I'm not calling that you need to be historians as professional historians, but you need to understand the craft of this subject. So you should be able to distinguish what is a history and what is perhaps propaganda, because propaganda is a carefully selected collection of facts that are work for one particular agenda, and facts that don't really fit for this agenda will be neglected or will be just avoided. So that's not what history do. Okay, but how do we know history? How do we know what happened in the past? Okay, for instance, we'll be talking about Russian history in this class. And all accounts about the early Russian history, which is like 9th century history, are based on primary chronicle or a chronicle of the years bygone. And that's the only source. So we really depend on the author of this chronicle, on the records that he used. Oral records basically that he used or transmitted to him. So therefore, it's really important now as part of Russian mythology. And when I use word mythology, I don't really mean ancient mythology, but I mean mythology as a collection of various stereotypes about various idealized histories, accounts about one own's background or about one nation's background. So this is mythology. So the whole case about summoning Varangians, summoning Scandinavians to Novgorod is based on this account. So, but then it's really important who was the narrator, who was the historian who wrote it down, because he was the source. Also, he had his own prejudice, and he would sort of select one facts and would dismiss other facts because they looked to him something that something that would contradict his own mythology, his own prejudice. So that's important. So, and this kind of source is called primary source, and this is a written primary source. So therefore, primary sources are not also ideal by themselves. Then, in addition to primary source, we also work with material sources. And what are material sources? Material sources can be, for instance, in study of history of Byzantium, there are a lot of seals, like lead seals or silver seals, that are found, because all serious documents were sealed back then. So documents themselves, they are not available, but seals are available. And for instance, in Dumbarton Oaks in Washington, D.C., there is huge database of those seals that are studied by historians in order to found what kind of families lived there, what were really mighty, important, influential families, because through seals you can trace them down, you can basically come up with a list of important families. And so it can be really very importantly interpret things like that. So besides seals, of course, there are archaeological discoveries where whole cities were discovered, like the one city in Italy that was destroyed by earthquake, the famous city of Pompeii in Italy. So that's important. Plus, also there are orally transmitted history. That history that is found in our idioms, that history is found in local history, in songs, that also can be quite useful. What else is important here? Okay. Why do we study history? I mean, ideally, now I would like to have discussion with you. So maybe you just basically start. I will give you a pause, like for 3 minutes now, and I will continue resume in 3 minute time, and you can now discuss. Why do we study history? Why is this important for us? What is your that's the first question, and then I will ask you the second question in a 3 minute time. Okay, so I will come back in 3 minute time. Okay, so why do we study history? Please discuss it among themselves right now, among yourselves. All right, I'm back. So, what was your answer regarding this question? What did you answer? Okay, I hope to find it out when I'm back. And now, the second question that I would like to ask you: why is studies of Russian history particularly important for me or for you? So just now discuss this question, and again I will come back in 3 minutes. Back, I will be back to you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will try to answer this question myself. Uh, why do I find this is important, and why do I think it might be useful for you to study Russian history? I believe that Russian church history that is studied here as a special course, as a separate course, is part of Russian of the history of Russia as a country. So it does not exist as independent thing. Okay, so that's what I understand. And in this sense, in order to understand Russian church history, we would need to have some skeletons. So Russian history that we will be studying in this class is a skeleton in Russian church history, kind of meat that goes over that skeleton. So that's important. So if you just study if you just start to study Russian church history, you won't be able to succeed without knowledge of the Russian secular history. As I don't really think that word fits here, but just to distinguish the two. So that's something that we need to provide it with fundament, with foundation for this. But it's not just practical application like that. So okay, I need to study Russian history in order to understand Russian church history. No, of course, Russian history was to be studied on its own as independent subject. Why? Because of one part of your experience here in Jordanville, you are exposed to different to people of different backgrounds, and part of their background is their history and history of the country from where they came from. So it's not really a key to everybody's personality, because we are more than just products of histories, but definitely it's part of our psyche, of who we are, of our identity. So that's one practical thing. Another practical thing, you won't be able to communicate with a person from Russia without knowing Russian history. Like, for instance, let's say I came to America and I have very vague ideas about American history. So and I would be probably uncomfortable on many occasions when I would have to talk to an American person without knowing the history of this country. So that's really important for this. I also hope it will help you to, this class will help you to understand Russian culture, so somehow better. So because it's also is important part of our education here. Okay, so right. So basically, I cannot think of anything regarding our major introduction. Something that I need to say. And I would like now to come to give the floor to Father George Florovsky. And I think you have heard of Father George Florovsky, but I will give some introduction to him in a separate video, and we'll talk there about him. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you very much for your attention, and we will continue. So our journey to Russia and through Russia will go on. Thank you so much.